here is the question that we got that made me want to reach out to you specifically. I'm a new mom with a 6-month-old. I was just starting to build my art career when we decided to get pregnant, and now I don't know how to balance the demands of brand new motherhood with my passion for my craft and the financial needs of my family. I didn't have enough built before the baby, so I don't have much of a foundation to work with. It takes time to build a business, but we have to buy a house. We've outgrown our current place, and it goes without saying the prohibitive cost of childcare. How do new moms who are also brand new business owners balance all of their family needs, time with the baby, financial goals, personal passions? Is it possible to start from scratch during a new baby season? Or do I have to compromise my desire to build the life that I want, at least for a season, in favor of the life that my family needs? I expect that you're going to have a 1-sentence answer that is just going to perfectly give all of the answers that everyone needs to know. I'm just kidding. No pressure.
Well, I wish, but
Right.
what I will say, with that answer, like if I was gonna say it in a sentence, that you're gonna have to pace yourself,
Yeah,
with all of what you want to do. Because I heard a couple of things, like you started this business, like there's financial concerns, you're trying to like buy a house. There's a lot of stuff to like try to manage all at one time. So you're gonna have to like pace yourself one step at a time. For me personally, my pregnancy was my green light into entrepreneurship. So I started my business when I was pregnant. Like it was like literally I was pregnant and I was just like, well, this is green light into entrepreneurship, because with my working lifestyle, like I live in New York, I worked for the government. I'm getting home at 7 o'clock. There was like a baby did not fit into the picture of like a traditional work environment, at least the way I was working at that time. And so this was my green light into entrepreneurship. So what I did specifically is that I started to do a lot of research and I started to build while I was pregnant. And I even started to like, get my first couple of clients, right? Because, the first ones are you truly usually come from like your network, people who know you. So I could get some experience. When my daughter was born, I built my first website by myself. So I did all of that stuff. And in terms of like figuring out how to work when you have a child, I would literally work around my daughter's sleep schedule. And like literally when they're small, like when they're babies, all they really do is eat and sleep. Really for the first 3 to 4 months. They don't really do much. Of course, you're going to play with them and stuff like that. But I used to work around that. So she would literally be like next to my desk. I'd have her in her bouncer or her swing or something, occupy her time. I'd take breaks. On my breaks, we'd either go out for a walk or something and things like that. Like I'd find a way to work around it. And then when I started to really book more clients, get like more busy, I would schedule the calls around her sleep cycle. Because eventually your child, you're going to notice like, okay, they always sleep at this particular time. And so you'll schedule your calls around that. And it made it quite easy for me at that time. In terms of your question about like, okay, like you've outgrown your space, you want to buy a new house, you're going to have to pace yourself with that. I don't think it's necessarily like the most realistic thing to like, you're like, okay, I'm trying to build a business, mom, and buy a house. Like that's a lot. And buying a house is not like you go out and buy a house tomorrow. It's a process. And so what I would say is like figure out what it is that you can do, like how you can work around your child's schedule. Try to start getting a couple clients, starts to set money aside so you can buy the house, right? And maybe it's like you have, you're looking at your financials, you can put a timeline on it. Maybe it's like 6 months, maybe it's a year, just depends on like how much money you're bringing in and the whole 9 yards. But you have to create a plan. Like this is going to take planning, because what you don't want to do is stress yourself out. If you're stressed, your baby is going to also be stressed. And so that's kind of the way that you can work around that. And then you need to also ask for help. This is like something that I see new moms struggle with all the time, is that they think, okay, I'm a new mom, I have to literally do it all. Like, no, you don't have to do it all. Now, with me, my parents live literally probably like 10 minutes from me. Like I could walk there on a very nice day. And so I would like have my mom like watch my daughter sometimes and stuff. And I'm not saying like you abuse kindness or anything like that, but like if you really need some time, because sometimes what it is, you need like a little hour or two like of like undivided attention to get something done, and you'd be surprised how much you could get done in that amount of time. Like even looking back at it, I'm just like, I don't even know how in the world I did half of the things in the time frame. But like, okay, this child is gonna wake up in like 30 minutes. I got 30 minutes to try to figure this out, and you'll get things done. So you have to also ask for help, because at the end of the day, as a business owner, you can't do everything necessarily yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing, because you're in a situation right now where you're business owner and mom at the same time. And so that's give and take. You're going to have to actually get some help for the times when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, suppose you book clients. That's the thing. You get the clients now. You have to think about, okay, what's the childcare going to look like when I'm actually doing the work for these clients? Because that's the thing. Like right now, you're like, okay, I need to make the money. But if you get like 10 clients, how are you going to make that work? So you have to, I always say, plan for what it is that you want your life to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you keep asking, like you're constantly saying like, okay, I want to get 5 clients. Well, you will get them. You're going to get the 5 clients. It's a matter of when you're going to get them. But when you get them, how is it that you're going to handle the demand of that? So you have to do some major family planning right now to get this in order, figure out what your schedule should look like and the whole 9 yards. And you find it's easier that way. But I think because you have all these questions in your head, you're a little stressed about that. But I would say this is how I would recommend to approach business and momming at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, so a few things that I'm hearing that I think are so important to highlight. The first is like, sorry, there's some very loud engine outside of my window. I don't really know what I'm trying to film this in the middle of downtown LA. So it's just going to happen. The first thing that I'm hearing is like, get specific. So get specific about like what the balance could actually look like for you, or what the priorities actually are, or what the timelines actually are. Like, if you're saying you've outgrown your current space and you need to buy a house, like if you already have a timeline on that, then that might be something that's not movable and you have to move the other things around it. But if that is movable, right? Like, so kind of sitting down and actually getting more specific about what you actually need, how much time you have, if you get the clients or if you get the work, how you're actually going to balance that. And to your point about planning for the life that you want, I love that you bring that up, because what I see happen really often, maybe not in this specific type of situation, but people saying, I want the clients, I want the money, I want all of this to come in. Also, though, feeling already spread thin with everything else that's going on. And they don't realize that they're actually holding themselves back from getting the work because there's an underlying fear of not being able to handle the work when it does come in. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to create like a clear kind of channel or some amount of space for that work to come into. And one of the things that I did, this is a totally different situation. I did not have a child in the mix. I had the benefit of, I have a partner. So like, and he was just moving into a new job at the time. But when I first started my business, I realized that I was filling so much of my time with like busy work. And I had to actually cut down the amount that I was working to create the space where I would want clients to go, just to prove to myself that I was going to actually be able to handle running the business and also doing the client work. It was like I needed to cut back on all of that like marketing and admin time so that I actually had the space where clients could actually come in. And I'm hearing some of that in what you're saying, like you've got to create a plan where you know that you'll actually be able to handle the work. And if you can't create that plan, then maybe now is not the time to be putting so much pressure on yourself to be getting clients, and you figure out some kind of alternate arrangement for money right now.
Yeah, because it's all give and take. There's only 24 hours in a day. Like you have to think about it like that. And you're not going to be working all of them. Some of it is for rest. Some of it is going to be taking care of your child. And if you're trying to do the business, some of it is going to take some time for that. So you have to plan out what it is your day can look like. And you're going to also have to plan for like the non-ideal day, because with children, anything could come up.
Yeah.
Like, you just have no idea. Like, for example, like I remember like last school year, I had like a major meeting and then my daughter was sick and I had to go get her from school, but I had a plan B, right? I couldn't go get her because I had this meeting. So I arranged for somebody else in my family to pick her up. So like you have to like plan accordingly in that way so you don't overwhelm and stress yourself, because you have very big ambitious goals and I love that. But you have to like work backwards in order to achieve the goals that you want.
Yeah.
So maybe what it is right now is you're working on the foundation of your business. Like, okay, how am I going to get the clients in? I don't know if you already have your site set up or a page or something, like if you have that set up yet, and the whole 9 yards, and how much clients can you actually take on right now with your current situation with your child. I don't know how old your child is, but I think your child is like 6 months.
6 months.
But
Yeah.
right. And so your child is also becoming a little bit more independent. I hope you also realize that too. I actually feel like it's interesting. When my daughter was a baby, and when I say baby, I mean, from the time of birth up until probably like a little bit before 2, it was actually easier. It's when they're like walking, talking, like that, you can't, like as a baby, they cry when they want to be changed, they cry when they want to eat, or they want your attention. But like as a toddler is just going to run rampant and stuff. So actually use this time to actually really get the foundational elements done. So like whether it's like you get like your calendar together and stuff, maybe it's like, okay, I remember with me when I had my daughter, I was like, okay, I could take calls. I had like a block of like 3 hours for calls a day. And that's how I was like, I would take my calls in between that time. The rest of the time I would do some work in between the time. So you just have to figure out what works for you, but it will work. You just have to really just set the intention and figure out like your schedule to actually really help you with this. Otherwise, you're going to stress yourself out, and that's what we don't want to do.
Yeah, because by the way, stress is going to diminish your capacity for any amount of creative thinking. Like it's going to require so much creativity. Like when you're starting a business, it just requires you to be able to think outside of the box about things or really think critically about how to solve a problem. And like, I cannot stress enough, as somebody who's not even had to deal with raising a child, there have been situations that I have gone through that are so much less stressful than that have totally taken me out in terms of being able to problem solve. And so one of the things that's really interesting, and I see this with clients of mine, is like sometimes getting a part-time job actually can relieve the stress to free up the creative energy to do some of this stuff. Like it might take you 4 hours to get something done when you're trying to do it while you're also thinking about a million other things and are stressed. Whereas if you had gone to work for 3 hours, not had to, had a little bit of that stress set aside, you might be able to do it in an hour because you're able to focus. So like part of it too is kind of knowing yourself, I think. And when I hear you say what we don't want to do is stress you out, I'm like trying to underline that because I feel like people don't understand how important that part of it is. Like, especially if the reason why you want to build a business is because you want to have some amount of like flexibility and freedom.
100%. Because I said it before, like if you're stressed, the baby will feel that stress. So that's what you don't want to happen. And if you're stressed, you're not going to be of benefit to yourself or honestly to anybody else.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I remember the reason I got into business too was to relieve myself of a lot of the stress. Right? I would have been super stressed out if I had stayed in the job that I had prior to getting pregnant and having a child. Like I would have been super stressed out, and I know that. And so you have to work to create the kind of lifestyle that you want, and you have to ask for help. Like it breaks my heart when I see a lot of mothers, they feel like they have to do it all themselves or figure it all out all themselves, and it is impossible. It's like it literally takes a tribe to raise a child, because you're not going to be able to do all of this stuff, even when your child is older and your business is flowing and stuff like that. Like you are going to need somebody to help you with homework.
Mhm.
Sometimes maybe it's like, and you're gonna have to clean the house, and there's cooking, and of course if you have a partner they can help you with that stuff too, but they're also working as well, so it's like it's a give and take, but you have to figure out like, okay, this is what I know I can do, this is what I need help with. And
Mhm.
I tackle that by making a list of all of these things, and knowing where it is that I can show up and where I need to show up
Mhm.
and stuff. Like, for example, like to me, cleaning a house, it takes so much time. This is like a whole day affair.
Yeah.
Who has the day to do all of that stuff? And you're running a business, you have a kid, like there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So get the help that you need. Now, I know you have financial concerns right now, but at the same time, you have to plan. So whether it is that you have somebody come in and help you maybe once a month,
Mhm.
once every 2 months, whatever it is that it looks like, you have to also create a place for yourself where you're going to be able to get the help that you need and ask for help. Whether it's like you have, if you have a partner, like, I'm
Yeah.
so tired, but I need to finish this. Can you please handle dinner tonight? Like whatever it is that you have to do, you have to do that, because the stress is not going to help your business thrive.
Mhm.
It's not going to help you thrive. And
Mhm.
then you don't want that trickling down to your child. So that
Mhm.
would be my advice with this question.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Come on.
Just holding my heart. I just want to give so much love to this new mama and their partner, it seems like. Too, I remember those days of 6 months of babyhood and just being in that bliss alongside the sleep deprivation, alongside the like
Yeah.
whoever tells me next I should just work when the baby naps, like I will murder them. Like, like some of the advice you would get is like, no, this can't actually happen.
Yeah.
So I'm holding that space so much. And I feel like, I wish there was a clear-cut answer that was like,
Right.
this is the right thing to do. But there's so many different shades of gray. And hopefully there's relief in those shades of gray, right? Like
Mm.
I could tell this mama right now that there is a solution for herself, for her business, for her family. And yes, there might need to be some compromising right now or some prioritizing. Um, I started my business in 2008. I went full time in 2010, and we got placed with our daughter via adoption when she was 5 weeks old in 2014. And
Mm.
so I had more time and experience under my belt than this mom. And obviously the circumstances were a bit different because I kind of sensed, like, we sensed the placement was coming that summer, and I tried to clear the decks as best as I could, but like we literally had 4 days notice for the like, yeah, and here's your baby.
Wow.
Um, but between my experience and what I've helped my clients with, and what I've heard from them too, I think what needs to happen is you need to just set up a new structure. And that structure needs to be really flexible because your baby is always changing. I joke that, like, just when you think your baby's on a schedule or like, the routine, haha, that baby laughs at you and is like, haha, now, I'm going to nap for, at this time instead of this time, or for this long instead of this long, or I'm going to sleep this way or whatever. So I think that there needs to be a new structure. And I think this mom and her partner really sit down and say, okay, what are the minimum financial needs of our family right now? How are we bringing in that money? And this might be a season or a time where there is a bridge job at play. And I use the term bridge job just to mean like, this is a job that just gives you the money that you need, that like totally either takes away or minimizes your financial stress while leaving you time and energy to work on your business. So whether that's her, doesn't mean she needs to jump into full-time employment, doesn't mean she even needs to be a part-time employee. It might be a contract job. It might be consulting or something if she has an experience. It might be the art business if she feels like, if she needs to bring in $2,000 a month and the art business could do that, amazing. So sitting down with her partner, what are the financial needs? How are we going to do that? And then what's the structure for support on that? I always feel like with new motherhood, the less that you could put on your plate, the better, because you could always add, but it's much harder to take things away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really key as well. That this is probably not the time for her to, we're recording this in September, and I want to imagine with her art business, she's thinking about the holidays and the, holiday markets and the holiday sales and, how much art she wants to make to sell. This might not be, and probably shouldn't be, the record-breaking year. This probably isn't the year where she's just going to create all this product or sign up for all these markets. Thinking again, like, what's the minimal viable plan to get what she needs maybe for the holiday season, and just take baby steps for her business. And I hope she could find comfort in the fact that over the past 15 years of doing this work, I have learned firsthand and through my clients that baby steps build the strongest foundation. And so she shouldn't think of baby steps as something that are less than, or that aren't going to get her where she's going to go, or to feel guilty or bad about it. It's like, no, actually, in this season, in this moment, taking baby steps, and just showing up for her business as consistently as she can in a way that's going to work well for her and her family and her priorities and their financial needs. Like, oh my gosh, crushing it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that anytime that I hear a question from somebody, and this, honestly, I did not even think about this. And as you're articulating this, I'm like, oh, right. Of course. Yeah. So, right. Of course, this is why you have to do this. Cause I'm like, anytime I hear someone ask a question where there's like so many different parts to it, and it's very clear that it feels very heavy, and like the decision that's made could have these implications on how you're going to live your whole life. Cause does it mean you have to sacrifice everything that you want? Right. It's like when you can pause and clarify and define what you actually do need, it can take a lot of that weight out of it, because now you actually can create a plan. And I also love what you said about, like, I can't tell you the number of people that I've had conversations with who, not because of this particular circumstance, but they're in a situation where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do, but also right now we're really pressed financially. And when I ask them, what does pressed financially mean? What's the minimal amount of money that you need to make in order to be okay? It's like that conversation hasn't happened, which no judgment, right? Yes. But it's just like, clarify what that is, because you will fill in that blank with a story that is probably based on your own money history. And then you can't create a plan. And then also, once you do know what the number is, you actually don't need to stress yourself out to figure out how to make your money, how to make your business make that money. You can do some combination of things.
Yes. Thank you. I agree. I co-sign. Yes. I talk all the time, especially when it comes to my clients who are looking to, leave their day jobs, and when do they know they should leave their day jobs, and how much money do they need? They're always running on assumptions about how much money they think they need, how much money they have, what's actually coming in. And when I say, no, you need to have a money date. You need to actually look at the numbers. I would say 100% of the time they come back and they go, oh, it's not as bad as I thought. Oh, it's not as much as I thought we needed. And it's stressful to show up and look at those numbers and run those numbers. I know the fear and the stress that's there, but I could tell you it is few and far between where there isn't relief that comes through with actually looking at the numbers and not just running on assumptions.
Totally.
I wanted to add to this too, because funnily enough, you sent me this question, and then totally coincidentally, one of my clients came into my private community for a program I run called Show Up Squad. And she's like, I'm pregnant, having my first baby. like, please, mamas who had babies while they just started their business, give me help. And I was like, this is amazing, right? Like serendipitous. So mama who wrote in, you are not alone. And I just got permission to share some of the response from my client, Dr. Suzette Leboy Perez of alittleeness.com. She had twins 2-ish years ago after being, a newish entrepreneur. And I love what she shared. She shared, number one, take all the leave you can. Number two, take all the help you can. Number three, like communicate. I think this is also really key. And she also said community, finding community. And being surrounded by people who are going through something similar. And I love those kind of 4 touch points, because I think that really sums up what the priorities are and what, not to gender stereotype, but I feel like what as women, we really struggle with, which is putting away the superwoman cape, which is asking for help and support. I know for me, my husband and I, by the time our baby came around, I was the breadwinner. He was working as a freelancer, and we knew he was going to be kind of the primary caretaker. And I wasn't really able to take a full maternity leave, but I was able, I limited my plate. I communicated to my clients when the baby was here. Hi, we have this baby. I was able to shuffle some calls around, and take some time off. But there was a point, I forget how long it was, but we just had a plan that we couldn't find a daycare in our area that worked for us. We lived in Brooklyn at the time. Everything was ridiculously expensive and prohibitive in other ways. And what we were able to settle on was, after a few weeks, possibly, we had a good friend of ours who had nannying, babysitting experience. We're like, can you be our person? I think two days a week. She just came for 6 hours, and it just allowed my husband to take the time that he needed to just have time to himself, do things that he needed. It allowed me to go and work a bit more guilt-free than I could otherwise. And that was something that we could afford. So getting that support, and she might find, there is a babysitting situation, or can I tap a grandparent on the shoulder to come help me? There might be other ways to get that, asking for that help, and just communicating her needs in her business and also in her personal life, will help her as an entrepreneur too.
Yeah, totally. And on that note about community too, and getting that kind of help, I have a client who she has a friend who also has a kid around the same age as hers. And they will do a thing where it's she'll take her kid to this friend's house, watch both of them while that friend goes to yoga.
Yep.
And then that friend comes back and watches both of them. And then she goes to the afternoon yoga class.
Yeah.
And so I know, I'm hearing in this that there's a lot of financial stress. And so, if there's if there's other people around where you can lean into each other to help each other out, that could be an option as well.
I love that.
Yeah. And the other thing too, that I do want to point out is that in this question, they said, is it possible to start from scratch during new baby season? And I would say you're not starting from scratch.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
You know? Yeah. It's so easy to tell yourself that if you take any time off, then you're going to have to totally start over. But there's so much stuff that you learned that you got out of the way before that you're not going to have to go through now. So nothing is, nothing, you're not starting from scratch. So I do not have children. So in addition to calling in Michelle Ward, who helps people who are at the very beginning of their businesses, I was also let me also call some people in who know what it's like trying to run, grow, whatever, a business with babies around, because this is not something that I have experience with, but it is something that you have experience with, hence why we're here.
Amazing. And yes, that's right. So I'm currently pregnant with my second, who's due in a few months, and my first is, what is he now? He's like 2 years and 3 months. So I've definitely been in the phase of trying to juggle all the things. And I think particularly when motherhood is new, it is so overwhelming. Your whole life has just changed. Your plate is so full, and it's so hard to carve out time for almost anything, particularly if you don't have, support nearby, like family members, or, daycare is really expensive. So without that as well, definitely a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
I should say that I had already got my business set up to a pretty decent point by the time I went off to have my first kid. So a lot of my own experiences won't be relevant to this question, but I've certainly worked with clients who have been in a similar position to this person. Okay, so my first thought is that 6 months in, like, everything is still so new. And I feel like particularly in that first 12 to 18 months of life with a new person, things are changing all the time. And, I found it to be so true that you feel like you finally reach a place where you're like, oh, I've got this down pat. And then something changes, like their sleep goes to shit again, or, they start walking, or like whatever it might be. And you're like, okay, we're back to square one, whole new set of challenges I have to adapt.
I'm laughing because the first person that I talked to about this question said the exact same thing. So we've reached consensus as far as I'm concerned on this front. Yes.
Amazing. So I'm only saying that as a starting point because I think it is so challenging to try and adapt to that constant cycle of flux and growth and change, while also trying to build a business from, not from scratch, but certainly from a place where, the foundations aren't yet set up to support this person to do the work that they want and to earn the money that they want. Like, that's a lot of wobbly foundations to try and work with. So I just want to acknowledge that it is really challenging. And normalize the fact that this person is finding it challenging and finding it confusing and finding it hard to work out, do I actually pursue this now, or do I have to sort of sacrifice this goal for now and focus on other things? It's a really big question. So I just wanted to start there. And it's good to know that the other person you've spoken to, Michelle, has also confirmed
she was like, as soon as you think that you've got it down, this child is going to laugh at you, and like the next thing is going to come up. So so yes.
Cool. So with that, I'm a huge believer that it is so important to build a business that supports the life you want to lead. That's my whole thing. And of course, that will look different in different seasons of your life. So for example, my business shifted significantly when I had my first child because I had been someone who had built a business based on providing one-to-one services. And that really required a reliable, for my time to be really reliable, to turn up to calls, to complete projects on time, to meet deadlines, and of course my energy to be at a reliable kind of standard, throw a baby into the mix. And, I was getting up 6 to 8 times a night for the first 13 months with my first child. So, my sleep just wasn't there. And he got sick all the time when he first started daycare as well. So the reliability factor wasn't there either. So just again, acknowledging that it's okay for your vision for your business to look different based on the season that you're in. And I would encourage this person to sit down with themselves and also with their partner and have a discussion about, what is the priority right now? What is going to be more supportive for this person? Is it going to be that they have time to pursue their passion and get paid for that? Or is it going to be that they go into some other sort of work or some other sort of job to really get the financials up and running in order to buy the house and to do other things that they want to do to support their family? And I think the key with that is knowing that it is a season. Things will change. There will be time and space for the other stuff if that time is not now. And I also think within that, like, holding the fact that even if the decision ends up being really need to prioritize finances right now, and maybe that means, less time and energy devoted to getting a business set up because, often it takes a while for the business to become profitable and to bring in significant amounts of money, it doesn't mean that there couldn't also be some time in that person's days and that person's weeks and months to do the kind of projects and the work that they love. And I think particularly as a new parent, when your whole identity is shifting and you have such little time to devote to the things that make you outside of being a parent, that can be incredibly important.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point because, you know, a lot of what you said was, you know, is echoing another conversation that I'm going to share that we had about this question with this, you know, get clear on like what you actually need. And maybe right now, like understand that this is a season. This isn't a decision that's going to be forever, right? Like just because you're not working on your business right now doesn't mean that you're just not working on your business. You can take baby steps. But I love this point about like using the working on the business almost as like a thing that you get to do for yourself rather than a thing that you're necessarily relying on as like the thing that's going to support you and the family right now. I love that concept. And I think that the beautiful thing about that too is this is an art career. And so I'm always coming back to like, why do you actually want to do the work that you do? And if part of the reason why you want an art career is so that you get to do art and be creative and whatever, like maybe that's the thing to prioritize for right now, knowing that nothing that you do right now is going to be wasted. And maybe later on is the time to go full in on it, but not putting so much pressure on yourself for right now.
Yes, exactly. Because I suspect that would be potentially the more stressful scenario if the decision is we really need to focus on finances, and the way we're going to do that is build this business up as quickly as possible. Given that you're still, you know, Bub's still really young, your time probably isn't reliable, your energy, your resources, your capacity probably also really stretched. Like to add the weight of that expectation on top could just be so stressful and so weighty. And your business and your work and your passion and your craft and your creative side can absolutely be self-care. And I certainly lent on my business for self-care too. Like time in my business when Ollie was young was self-care. And I loved that because I got to reconnect with a part of myself and things that I otherwise didn't have the chance to do in that crazy phase of having a young child.
I love that. Oh, see, this is why I wanted multiple people to weigh in on this one, because this is a perspective that we didn't get yet. And I think this is such a good point. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you would want to add in response?
Ooh, let me think. I feel like I'd love to have a conversation with this person and just find out more of the nitty-gritty details in terms of like, what is set up? Like, is there low-hanging fruit that you can monetize or that you can, you know, sell or that you can, you know, something that you can jump into really easily? That you don't have to really work up to. Like, I would love to know those kinds of things. I feel like that kind of information might help formulate some sort of plan or strategy or way forward.
Well, I mean, no, you're right. Like, is there anything that you can do that's just sort of like, is it an opportunity? It sounds like kind of what you would be able to get from that is to maybe just adjust the way that you're thinking about quote unquote building the business. And is there something easier that you can do right now rather than going down the road that you've maybe decided you have to go down to quote unquote have to go down to build a successful business? It's like, well, is there something really easy that you could do right now that's kind of in line, or even is there something easy that you could do right now that maybe it doesn't even seem to you to fit squarely in the bounds of what you thought your business was going to be, but it's still something that feeds that side of you, you know, or allows you the things that you wanted to get out of building your art career or your art business. The person who asked this question, if you want to send in more questions with specifics, go for it.
Yeah, go nuts.
We'll bring people back and we'll keep going.
Yes, round two.
Yeah.
I think the thing that we're both sort of swirling around here is that it would be so helpful, I think, for this person to really define what success looks like for them right now.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so easy, regardless of like life stage and business stage, to have this idea of success. Sorry, I did my quotation marks too early then. An idea of success that, you know, is a certain kind of business that earns a certain amount of revenue, that allows you to work a certain amount of hours. And that isn't everyone's version of success. That isn't the business that's going to feel right for everyone. And it's certainly not the business that's going to feel right for everyone at every stage of their life. So I think the clearer you can get on what that looks like for you right now, and that success might be that you know, have, I don't know, 4 hours a week to create. And, you know, if you earn $1,000 a month from that, that's great. And maybe that's what you aim for. And then I think once you get those goals dialed in, it becomes easier to hatch a plan to work towards that, because you can sort of work backwards. Like, here's the end. All right, how am I going to get there from where I am now? Like, what's the bridge I'm going to build? So I think that's probably what we're both talking about in roundabout ways.
Yeah, totally. I love this.